Alistair, great to meet you again here in London. And I was just, coming out of not too long ago from the IEA ministerial in Paris, and I saw more and more the awareness on why this energy transition, this clean energy transition, needs more speed and scale in terms of investments, also in the infrastructure, in the grid part. And I would like to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, well, I think we've just seen consistently recent COPs that we've both been at. We're seeing disturbing news about the planet potentially going up to 1.5 degrees for a 12-month period. That's what everybody's very, very committed to avoiding. The energy transition, hugely important. For us as a company, our part in that, we announced recently we're going to be spending £20 billion over 5 years and hopefully north of £40 billion over a decade on a variety of infrastructure. We've got renewables, we've got flexible generation and looking at carbon capture and storage, but actually networks, which is a huge part of our business as well, massively important. How do we connect all this generation up and actually bring it into people's homes and businesses so we can power the future in a green way? The points that we keep on making in these forums and also with all the stakeholders, that technology is not the bottleneck. And then many stakeholders bring up, okay, what about financing and what about the regulatory framework? On the financing side and on the regulatory, what are your perspectives, not just for the grids, but for the broader spectrum? Without being too congratulatory to the people we've got some great partners. Hitachi are one of them. They've got a lot of great technology. I think the issues, financing, clearly interest rates have gone up and people are adjusting to a different world where you don't kind of have free money anymore. But I still think the financing is there for good projects. What you need is the right policies. So I think, in the UK, we've seen strong engagement from the regulators, particularly on the network side, enabling, tens of billions of pounds worth of investment to be signed off right through until 2030 and into the early 2030s, which has been great. But I think policy is a key thing, and policy can unlock financing as well. So I think all those things are there and the technology's there too. There's then going to be a capacity issue. How can developers like ourselves give companies like yourself enough confidence to build all the factories that we will need to build in order to produce all the goods that we want? And then planning is one of the key things I think underpins all that. So, funnily enough, regulation and finance, I think are okay. They're not trivial, but they're okay. But actually planning, policy, and then how we give the certainty all the way up and down the value chain and really get building. We were, discussing about the supply chain and how do we ensure with longer term visibility that we can plan not only for our own capacity, but for the capacity that we need for our suppliers. And your team has been a great contributor and supporter to innovate also in that sense. Yeah, I think what we've had is really constructive discussions with major technology providers and with their supply chain about how we do that. I think where we've landed is policy certainty. How can we get 3, 5, 7 year programs of work? How can we then come back to you? You've looked at ways in which you want to contract so you can make the investments. We've looked at ways in which we can guarantee that we get the equipment we want over the time so we can build out multiple projects. If we've got 4 or 5 big HVDCs. And I think we've just been open-minded and certainly, Hitachi's done a great job with us in terms of how we construct new models to create the right framework to deliver on an energy transition, which is a very, very changed world from even where we were 5-6 years ago. And very important, the repeatability, the kind of harmonization of standards and so on, which helps us to build the scale. So great on that. Just to close, Alistair, your perspective on, of course, there is a lot of planning done and a lot of commitments done between now and 2030. So I think that roadmap is quite clear. How do you see that journey after 2030? I think we're starting on some of that in the transmission businesses and the network businesses. Those models that I talked about and those plans, now that we've got some capacity locked in for the rest of this balance of this decade, we're almost looking at next decade for when we can build it. If I think about our distribution business, which is lower voltage, they're talking about a 15-year plan of how they get to more like 2040. And we're certainly working on some projects into the 2030s now with the regulator here in this country and looking at what the capacity is in the supply chain in order to deliver that. So I think, as you say, repeatability, the overall plans for the group, so spatial plans as people call them. We're talking about that in this country on the back of the Windsor report, and then how that can feed into making sure that developers, technology providers, balance of plant providers, everybody can link up. We've got that North Star, which is the energy transition, which is getting to net zero. It's great when you've got that to aim at, and actually I think we're all working a lot better together because of it.
Thank you so much. And then once again, great to see you again here in London.
Great to see you.
So much.
Thanks, Claudio.